You have heard your own voice thousands of times. Every conversation, every phone call, every time you have spoken out loud for your entire life. You have heard yourself speak. And yet, the moment you hear a recording of your own voice, something feels deeply, uncomfortably wrong. That is not your voice. It cannot be. It sounds different, thinner, more nasal, more monotone. And yet everyone around you insists that yes, that is exactly what you sound like. So who is right? Your ears or the recording? The answer is both. And the reason why reveals something genuinely extraordinary about how your brain constructs your experience of yourself, and why the version of you that exists in your own head is fundamentally different from the version that everyone else hears. It starts with the physics of sound. When you speak, your vocal cords vibrate and produce sound waves. Those sound waves travel outward through the air in all directions. Some of them travel through the room, bounce off the walls and objects around you, travel back through the air, enter your ears, and that is what you hear when you listen to someone else speak. This is called air conduction, and it is the only pathway that other people have access to. When they hear your voice, this is all they hear. But when you speak, you have a second pathway. The vibrations from your vocal cords do not only travel outward through the air, they also travel inward, through the bones and soft tissues of your own skull, directly to your cochlea, the hearing organ in your inner ear. This is called bone conduction, and it is a pathway that is completely invisible to everyone listening to you from outside your head. Here is the crucial difference. Bone conduction transmits lower frequencies more efficiently than air conduction does. Sound traveling through bone and tissue arrives at your cochlea with a richer, deeper, more resonant quality than the same sound traveling through air. Your skull acts as a bass amplifier. It enhances the low-frequency components of your own voice in a way that no external listener ever experiences. So when you speak and hear yourself, what you are actually hearing is a blend, a mixture of the air-conducted sound coming back to your ears from the room, combined with the bone-conducted sound traveling directly through your skull. The bone conduction component adds warmth, depth, and resonance. It makes your voice sound fuller and richer to you than it actually is in the air. A recording captures only what the microphone captures, the air-conducted sound. It strips away the bone conduction component entirely, and so what you hear in a recording is the version of your voice that everyone else has always been hearing. The air-conducted version, without the skull resonance, without the internal amplification. It sounds thinner and higher than what you are used to because the low-frequency enrichment your bones were adding is simply gone. This is why your recorded voice always sounds slightly higher, slightly thinner, and slightly less impressive than what you hear in your own head. Not because the recording is wrong, because the voice in your head has always been artificially enhanced by your skeleton. But there is a second layer to this story, one that goes deeper than physics and into psychology. The discomfort most people feel when they hear their recorded voice is not just about pitch and resonance, it is about identity. Your voice is one of the most fundamental aspects of how you recognize yourself. From the very first time you heard yourself speak as a child, the internal version, the bone-conducted, bass-enriched version, became the sonic signature of your identity. It became the sound that you associate with yourself thinking, speaking, existing in the world. When you hear the recorded version, it does not match that internal signature, and your brain interprets that mismatch as something being wrong. Not just different, but wrong. The technical term for this is source monitoring error. Your brain expects the voice to match the stored template it holds for you, and when it does not, the mismatch produces a feeling of foreignness, of alienation from the sound. Humans are extraordinarily sensitive to voice recognition. Research by Tim Salthouse and others on self-recognition has shown that people can recognize their own faces and voices even when they are heavily distorted, but only when the distortion preserves the internal template they are used to. When the distortion removes information that was part of that template, recognition fails and discomfort follows. What makes this particularly interesting is that the version of your voice you are most familiar with, the bone-conducted, skull-resonated version, is one that is entirely private to you. No one in your life has ever heard it. Every conversation you have ever had, every speech you have ever given, every word you have ever spoken to another human being, they have all heard the thinner, air-conducted version. The rich, warm version of your voice exists only inside your own skull. It is the most intimate sound in your life, and it belongs to no one but you. This asymmetry runs deeper than you might realize. The voice you use to talk to yourself, the inner voice that narrates your thoughts, that rehearses conversations, that reads words when you read silently, that voice also carries the bone-conducted quality. When researchers use neuroimaging to study the inner voice, they find that the same motor and auditory regions involved in speaking and hearing activate during internal speech. You are literally running a simulation of speaking, and the simulation uses the enriched, internal template of your voice rather than the external air-conducted one. You have been listening to the wrong version of your own voice your entire life, and so has everyone else. There is actually a way to hear your own voice more as others hear it, without a recording. If you plug your ears tightly with your fingers while speaking, you dramatically reduce the air-conducted component and hear more of the bone-conducted sound alone. The result is an even more distorted version than a recording, because now you have removed the air component entirely. Most people find this even more unsettling than hearing a recording. Alternatively, professional singers and broadcasters who work extensively with recordings tend to adapt over time. With enough exposure to their own recorded voice, the brain updates its internal template. The recorded voice becomes familiar, and the discomfort diminishes. The brain is not finding the voice more attractive. It is simply revising its model of what that voice is supposed to sound like. The mismatch resolves because the expectation changes. The next time you hear a recording of your own voice and feel that familiar flash of discomfort, that this cannot possibly be what you sound like, remember what is actually happening. Your skeleton has been lying to you your whole life. It has been quietly adding bass, depth, and warmth to your own voice that no one else can hear. The recording is not distorting your voice. The recording is showing you the truth. The distortion is happening in your head, and the version that everyone else has always heard. That thinner, higher, slightly unfamiliar voice in the recording. That is the voice they recognize as you. That is the voice they look forward to hearing. That is the voice they fell in love with, argued with, laughed with. You are the only person in the world who has never heard it properly.